throwaway account and my first post ever, so I'm not sure if I'm doing this right or violating any rules. I'll start with some info about family dynamics. I am F, early 30s, brother and sister-in-law are in mid to late 30s, niece is 8. For simplicity, I'll abbreviate brother to B, sister-in-law to SIL, and keep niece as niece. SIL is narcissist who thinks she's smarter than everyone in the entire world. She has total control over niece and brother and doesn't let them do anything without her permission. Brother is too scared or too apathetic to really fight back, even when it's for his daughter. He says, I don't have time or want to get in a fight. She'll just scream at me for hours until I give in, and she will. They've lived with me before, and she will scream if anything doesn't go exactly her way. B and SIL are constantly fighting, and SIL refuses to go to any professional for any type of therapy. I think she's wary of any therapists or psychologists. BC, she's paranoid and FKN crazy. Her mother is a diagnosed schizophrenic and or bipolar, and SIL was taken out of her custody as a kid. I'm sure she's wary of being officially diagnosed, and the same happening to her. SIL works from home, and B doesn't work. SIL complains that she is the only one working, but then if B gets a job, she berates him for not being home and helping with niece. Niece is homeschooled after SIL took her out of school system after kindergarten. SIL says she took her out. BC niece's teachers weren't teaching her anything, and of course, SIL is way smarter and knows how to teach way better. Sarcasm. Niece is a super sweet, lively, funny, smart, but autistic who needs possibly more involved teachers, which isn't a hard find. We live in an area with great resources for parents with autistic children. Families move to our area for these schools and resources. But SIL is smarter and can teach her child better than anyone else. I'm convinced SIL took niece out of the school system to make it harder for other people to report abuse, considering B and SIL have already had multiple other children taken by CPS and adopted out. I won't go into extreme detail on that. BC, I want to remain anonymous, but CPS was called for their first few children, and the state found that their children were malnourished and emaciated and close to death. This is honestly very traumatic for me to remember, and B and SIL still don't admit that they were not taking care of their children well. Luckily, these kids have a great life now away from SIL and B and are very healthy and happy. B and SIL are also dirty people, meaning they don't clean their house well, they smell. BC, they don't wash often, including their clothing. Which means my niece smells bad and is often wearing dirty clothes, grime caked under her nails, smelling of cigarette smoke and dirty clothes, hair tangled and unbrushed, teeth unbrushed, etc. SIL is having difficulty homeschooling niece. Surprise, surprise, and anytime niece is either fighting against doing schoolwork or getting questions wrong, SIL will scream at her and call her names like B***, TCH, stupid B***, TCH, C** and T, and R** tard. Again, she's autistic and 8, and this is the main reason I'm writing. I cannot stand by and just let her verbally abuse niece. It's so upsetting. I'm worried about the escalation as niece gets older. Will SIL start hitting niece like she hits B? And B won't do anything about it. He's only concerned with himself. He thinks he's going to get his degree in a year and immediately get a job and just easily get custody of niece. He's so delusional. And all he cares about is getting the degree. He won't get a job against SIL's will, to save money. He said he won't get a fast food job or a job that's not related to his degree, and I asked, not even for your daughter's well-being? And he said, no. Let me be clear. Neither of them are good parents or selfless enough to have children, but B knows that SIL is abusing niece, and he knows that SIL will harm niece's development and says he plans to leave SIL and get full custody of niece. My mother and I used to have time with our niece, a few hours a week, but SIL has taken that away from niece, and us after niece told us that mommy says auntie is stupid and isn't smart and mommy doesn't like auntie and grandma, so we haven't seen her in a few months. When she would come over to grandma's house, she would play, get fed. BC, she often arrived to us in the afternoon with not having eaten, get a bath and clean clothes that we keep at grandma's house, and we would take her to a park or to a store. Anything to get her out of the house. BC, she never leaves her house. She has no friends. She literally just told us about her new imaginary friends. At 8, she has developed 2 imaginary friends. BC, SIL keeps her completely isolated. When it was time to take niece back to her house, she would always be very sad and tell us she wished she could live with us and that she didn't want to go home. Then, when she was home, we're told by SIL that niece would act up, get an attitude, not want to do her schoolwork, etc. Side note, niece has no set schedule or weekends off from school. She is doing schoolwork at different times all day, every day. No wonder she get an attitude and tries to refuse doing work. She has no downtime or routine. And she's always being yelled at and belittled when doing her work. She never acts as bad with us as her parents say she does with them. And we don't spoil her. BC, her mother would use that as an excuse to keep her away from us. But we do let her be a kid and have fun. We don't let her eat whatever she wants at our house. She gets one small treat like a cookie, but after she's eaten her meal. We set boundaries with niece, like no yelling or name calling. If she throws a tantrum, usually autistic meltdown, we get her to calm down with breathing exercises so she can verbalize her emotions in a healthy way. We don't yell at or get short with her BC, that's what her parents do, and it triggers her. Anytime our voices get raised, even in a joking manner, she shuts down and yells, "Stop fighting," and we explain and calm her down. We explain why we ask her to do things like clean up after herself, or why she isn't allowed to do something BC. It really helps her to understand the reasoning rather than just saying, "BC, I said so," and she doesn't yell and scream and cry at us when we do that. She is such a good kid, and everyone that meets her falls in love with her, and it's heartbreaking to see the way her own parents treat her. Sorry for typos, BC, I'm crying and can't properly see the keyboard. I feel like I'm all over the place and rambling, so I'll just going to bullet point some concerns so it's easier to follow. SIL is mentally unstable and has a history of mental instability. SIL is narcissistic and paranoid. SIL hits her husband. SIL financially abuses husband by not letting him get a job or have access to bank account. SIL verbally abuses my niece and calls her names and slurs. SIL won't let husband make decisions for their child that she doesn't agree with. SIL and husband do not keep a clean house or have good hygiene for them or daughter. SIL keeps my niece completely socially and physically isolated. SIL tries to brainwash niece against grandma and auntie and father. SIL won't get niece the medical/mental health care she needs, especially in regards to her autism and ADHD. Niece tells us she loves being at grandma's house and doesn't ever want to go home. At this point, Grandma and I are trying to help you plan and gather physical evidence of SIL's abuse, including things like audio recordings of SIL, a divorce lawyer, and family lawyer, but we know that B won't have much of a case if he doesn't get a job and save his money, doesn't report SIL's actions to someone, and doesn't have any physical evidence of everything Eve mentioned above. He is very apathetic IMO. TBH, we're also trying to get all this evidence so Grandma and I can have a chance at least of getting temporary custody of Nice until we can get his own sh*t together. We're desperate and we need some advice. Have any of you gone through this? Will their record with CPS help us get custody? Will CPS even care about what's mentioned above as long as Nice isn't being hit or starved? We're worried if we call CPS and they can't do anything, that SIL will take Nice and run to her home state and we won't ever see Nice again. We're desperate for help and advice. We live in MO, USA. I'll answer any questions you have.